The Opinion with Michael J. Don't look outside because the sky's falling. When you go to the town called Conservative Town, Separationville, that's a little town within the town, the home of conservatives. The ones that say everything's broke. Canada's broke, Canada's broke, Canada's broke, Canada's broke, Canada's broke. We need to change, because it's broke. That's all you heard from Pierre Poilievre. That's all you hear from his friggin' pundit followers. YouTube influencers. No. What's dangerous about these YouTube influencers is they create these conspiracies. Create conspiracies about liberals and Carney now. Gotta have some drama in your life. Not getting it from Netflix. That are pure nonsense. Based on conjecture without merit whatsoever. Just a good bowl of nonsense. Not common sense, nonsense. There is a difference. You see, you ask a conservative what's the problem? He says nonsense. I thought you said it was common sense. No, it's nonsense. We're not here to help you. We're the party of nonsense. So anyway, this gentleman here, Josh, congratulations, Josh. He and his wife just had a child. Josh is not into immaculate conception. He hasn't evolved enough to understand how to do that. But his wife's been doing the hard slugging for him. And now he's ready to go. So let's see what he's got to say. Jeez. What's he got? I'm gonna show you what he's got to say first. Hold on. Here we go. You got an intro. Then you got a home equity tax. Oh no. The skies are falling. And these liberals are going to come out of the skies and take your homes. And then Trump puts death knell to Canada's film industry. So, you ever heard of a president ever before that's decided to tariff the film industry? Well, guess what? Agent Orange, Agent Krasnov, the Putin puppet. Oh yeah, that guy, the Putin puppet. The Putin puppet. You gotta know all roads lead to Putin. Damn, did I say that? Yes, I did. All roads lead to Putin. So, let's get right to the point. Take it away, Josh.
Because it allows us to get into something critical, something that's been hovering around that people need to have discussed, especially with this new leadership coming in, quote unquote, with Mark Carney. People are like, this home equity tax situation, that's been discussed. We need to talk about that. We'll be going into that in depth today to kind of talk about what is actually happening. There's been a lot of rumors, a lot of things floating around, and we're going to kind of hit what's happened and up to this point and why you need to keep a close eye on the fact that home equity tax may actually come in. Especially those boomers who voted Mark Carney. Your home equity might be getting taxed to make things more fair for the young generation. You know that generation you've been saying is a bunch of lazy bums? Yeah, man. Government's coming for your home equity possibly, so we'll see what happens. And then I know the second question you have is...
Wait, got you into reading minds? No, you just had a kid. You barely had time to get settled back into the saddle here. And it's all doom and gloom. The boomers, everybody, doom and gloom. Doom and gloom? Fighting a war. It's us against them. They're coming for you. They're coming for you. Head for the hills. They're coming for you.
Is Josh, why is your face so red? And I'm like, to that I say, well, I played a round of 18 holes today. Got my face lit up by the sun, and, you know.
Who wanted the golf game, you or Trump? Yikes.
Here we are. Now you're going to get a bunch of red-faced Josh for this afternoon's episode. Plus, Donald Trump adds more tariffs to the film industry. And this actually is going to have a bigger impact than we even realize here in Canada. So we're going to get into all of it. Before we do that, take the time, please share, like, and subscribe. It really helps grow the channel, helps me feel good about myself, helps warm my soul, and helps push a different perspective forward to challenge and offer a different perspective that the mainstream media simply doesn't offer.
This is what you get. Fiction instead of fact. Take fiction instead of fact. And you wonder how this happened in the United States, how Trump got elected. The exact same thing happened. They took fiction instead of fact. They listened to a guy that promised the moon. Said, oh, I'm going to fix everything. Going to fix everything. Ukraine's going to be fixed in 24 hours. Finally, 4 months after, about 4 months, 3.5 months after he gets back in the saddle and in the office, he says, I was just saying that. Go figure. Pierre Poilievre, how many friggin', I never thought I would say it, but that last day on April the 28th, he sat at the podium and said, snakes and ladders and this Horizon paper, which is a hypothetical paper based on hypotheticals. They're coming for you. This is what's going to happen. Even the government says that. That's the first time I said, I know you've really twisted things around and, made truth into some really shady areas of non-truths. But I chose to ignore that. But this is the first time when I finally said, this guy's out and out friggin' lying. I couldn't friggin' believe it. What are we doing here? We supposed to be leading a country? Make things better for the people? Who are we serving? Our self-interest just to get into power just for the sake of, it's not good enough that my pension when I was 29 is $12,000 a month guaranteed. Like, who else has got that, Mr. Poilievre? How many other people have a $12,000 a month pension guaranteed when they turn 29? Tell me that. Answer that question. What are the facts? You're not going to hear it. So here we go. Back to Josh.
Now let's get into the story, shall we? So let's talk some stats. Let's talk some facts that are a little bit uncomfortable, a little bit annoying, but it's just the reality of the case. So this is
Yeah, just continue with your narrative. Your narrative, Josh. I know you got a narrative here. And you're going to work at creating division with bias. Can you imagine that? Division with bias.
Actually, I'm going off of a video that I believe it was the Winnipeg Sun reporter did. It was like a 3-minute TikTok video kind of laying out all the things I'm going to lay out here. I'm going to take what he did and go a little deeper for you. So, something that's a little uncomfortable. People don't like to talk about.
He's going to go a little
federal
bit
government.
deeper. Okay. So if he's going to go a little bit deeper, let's pull it up first so you can get a little insight to where he's going with this thing. Where's he going with this thing? Okay, here's the Winnipeg Sun. Klein, April 23, 2025. Liberals eye home equity tax while Canadians shout fake news and hurl emojis. The response to my recent column, quiet interest in taxing your home equity, was predictable but revealing. Instead of engaging with the facts, many online commentators resorted to the usual routine hashtag name-calling, shouting fake news into the void, and hurling emojis like they're making a serious argument. What drama? You don't get much. Charlie Chaplin was a good actor. He could stir you up. So let that sink in, this guy says. That's the level of discourse from people who refuse to confront what's actually happening in this country when faced with uncomfortable truths. Why don't you just give us some facts? Where are the facts? Because the facts are not up for debate. Okay. The CMHC A federal crown corporation has investigated the possibility of a home equity tax on more than one occasion, using taxpayer dollars to fund that research. That was not backroom speculation. It was real documented work. Well, why are you not showing it to us? Why are you not showing it to us there, buddy? Where is it? You're going to put that down on paper? Why don't you put the friggin' evidence to back up what you're saying? Well, I can't do that, he says. Because he says the Liberal paid a group called Generation Squeeze, led by activist Paul Kershaw. And this is where it gets really interesting. They take you down a rabbit hole. Meanwhile, they tell you the walls in the rabbit hole on the way down as you're going are going to be white, lily white. Meanwhile, they're blazoned with red, yellow, all sorts of different colors. Almost 7 different colors, just like a rainbow. So, he further says Kershaw believes he's reading this guy Kershaw's mind, and says, by the way, believes homeowners are lottery winners. Well, if you were around prior to the 1980s, you knew a house was a money pit. And then you see the boom-bust cycles with property and people making money off property. Never seen before. Not in 100 years, but, that's neither here nor there. Makes no sense, right? He further states it doesn't stop there. These proposals were presented directly to federal cabinet ministers. That's on record. Just like the Horizons paper, policy, Horizons. They're there to understand hypotheticals, what could be, what you don't want to do, to present you with ways of thinking, to open up dialogue, to come up with a different way of putting things together that might work. But the fact that you spend money, and we don't know, this guy hasn't even proven he hasn't put any real paper out here on the paper. You know what I mean? It's a paper. Winnipeg Sun. No pun intended. The Winnipeg Sun. Yet, when this was raised publicly, the online mob didn't want to talk about facts. They wanted to shut it down. Because why? It didn't happen. Whatever period in time this guy Klein states that it happened, well, they may have put some money into a third party that they have no influence over, and may have got something back, but did they steal your home? Did the Liberals steal your home? Give me a friggin' break. Problems with affordability and housing. It's by every government in power. It's not exclusive to one government. So let's let the chips fall where they need to fall. Let's find out a solution that works to get us out of it. No snapping fingers and no tax cuts are going to fix it instantly. Let's be clear about that. Let's go back to Josh here.
Is currently $1.2 trillion in debt. That feels bad. So I think that essentially is double what it was before Trudeau took office. So, that feels bad. So that is something that is a reality of new spending. And so with the $1.2 trillion of debt, well, we are currently paying $53.7 billion in just servicing the debt. And the government knows this. And we've seen with Mark Carney's spending plan promising $130 billion worth of spending, which we know is likely going to be higher than what he promised. It's only going to add to the debt, which shows the behavior we're seeing from the Liberal Party is that spending is not going to stop. They are against cuts. They're against trying to make things operate properly. So what you can expect is that our debt is only going to grow. Servicing that debt is also only going to grow. With our debt costing
And based on the increased immigration, we're going to collect more taxes to help with servicing that debt. So, comes in, goes out. Comes in, goes out. It's how you balance things, buddy. It's how you balance it. Let me tell you, there's a real wonderful way of looking at this. Coherence, harmony, and balance. Don't let the fear of God. You guys are worse than the friggin' Catholic Church. God's gonna friggin' come and rain down upon you. You've been bad. God. If God was so loving, why do they make him into such a pariah in the Catholic Church? Like, come on, you got to question these things.
Government $53.7 billion just to service that. Just to service that debt, you're looking at approximately $1,377 per person per year.
Well, let me ask you another question, Josh. If it only costs 2.5% out of your operating budget to service that debt, where are you going to get a loan for 2.5%? Let me ask you that. And them's the facts, buddy.
That is coming out of you. Well, that can be tough to see, right? And so with that being...
Just like the Merchant of Venice. Just a pound of flesh. Nothing more, nothing less.
In the reality, the government is tending to look at different ways they can bring in cash. We've seen the fundamental difference between how the Liberal government does things and how the Conservatives view things. Conservatives want to encourage more investment coming into the country. Conservatives want to encourage the free market to do its thing to spur on economic growth. Whereas the Liberals, typically what they do, they look to inject...
Where did the free markets get you? Tax cuts, free markets, and deregulation in Ontario got you a one-bedroom apartment for $2,500 a month, no rent controls, and hardly any GDP. The guy, Doug Ford, during COVID, got $9 billion from the feds. 2 years later, he still had $7 billion of it left, hadn't spent it. You know how you do it? It's like Keynesism, Maynard Keynes, Australian economist. You invest. When you invest in infrastructure, it turns economies around. It's been proven. When you invest by doing tax cuts to corporations and the rich, and the trickle down, and you expect the trickle down effect to happen, it doesn't happen. And that's where the Conservatives, it's proven. History's proven it. Let's be honest.
Money into the system. They look to just build programs. They look to just figure out ways that they can just splurge taxpayer funds to invigorate the economy. One is relying on the free market to do it. The other is looking to restrict the free market, take the money from it, and redistribute it themselves to try and get it going. That is the fundamental difference between how the Liberals view things and how the Conservatives.
No, it's because the macroeconomics are totally different from a government's budget to a home budget. And you can stimulate the economy in many ways. And I'll give you an example. Mid-1990s, Mike Harris government, Conservative in Toronto. Cut, 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 cut. 2025, healthcare still has not recovered from those cuts. But you had a thing called the 407. The government sold it to a consortium, which included SNC Lavalin. So I guess it wasn't just Liberals that were involved with SNC Lavalin. Mike Harris, who ended up being on the board of directors, had his hand in the honey pot before anybody else. So there's another friggin' myth buster. Another myth busted. So here, the moral of the story is, the Ontario government sold it for $3 billion to balance the budget. And guess what? It was a cash cow that provided over $30 billion in profit to the people that got it, corporations that got it. So if you made $3 billion by selling it, and you actually made money on that, and then you gave up on $30 billion by not holding on to your investment, do you understand how government and their infrastructure spending is different from your home spending or a private business? Like, you don't understand those things. This is beyond the comprehension of the people that are mostly playing to the conservative tone.
View things. So with that being the case, you had a study that came out a handful of years ago. CMHC funded an organization called the National Housing Strategy Solution Labs Program, which then gave way to Generation Squeeze, which is an organization that looked into how they could possibly tax home equity in order to make housing more fair. You hear that right? Taxing home equity in order to make it more fair for the younger generation.
So this is Generation Squeeze, eh? Generation Squeeze. Well, by golly, gee golly, let's see what Generation Squeeze is all about. What are these guys about? Well, it started in 2014 in Vancouver, British Columbia. It's a non-profit. Can you imagine that? It mostly deals with youth rights. Can you imagine that? Canadian nonpartisan. Can you believe nonpartisan? That's hard for a conservative to wrap their head around. A nonpartisan, nonprofit organization that advocates on behalf of young adults. The organization came to have, or claims to have modeled itself after CARP, an organization that advocates for Canadians 45 and older. And believe it or not, CARP, in that last week of the election, had Pierre Poilievre at their head office and pushing him to their group of listeners, which includes radio and various other media, Vision TV, to vote for Pierre Poilievre. So I'm just giving you real facts. I'm not twisting stuff into something else. So this is a nonprofit. Here's the real people involved in it that are doing the day-to-day operations. Imagine that, eh? Here's the organizations: Canadian Youth, International Falcon Movement, LBGT, National Youth Rights. You can look at it. One World Youth Project, Queer Youth Network, Youth Liberals of Ann Arbor. Ann Arbor's in Michigan. The Youth Cafe, Young Communist League of Canada, Young Democrats of America, World Federation of Democratic Youth. They've got a wide reach. Issues. Child marriage, child, conscription, minimum driving age, marriageable age, minor, smoking age, status offense, that's what it is. So this is Generation Squeeze. This is Wikipedia, and Wikipedia is not totally 100% accurate, but for the most part, it's usually over 90% accurate. And then let's go to Generation Squeeze, their own website. You know the symptoms: affordable child care or unaffordable child, climate breakdown, government debt, a bleak legacy, unaffordable housing. Join us to fight the disease, generational unfairness. Latest news and insights. Change. So let's look at who we are. Who are they? Who are these people? Oh, some of the funders. Let's look at the funders. Because it's a nonprofit, they got to be transparent. Let's look at the funders. Okay, funding some. Current funders include individual donors and Canadian Institute of Health Research, Public Health Agency of Canada, Vancouver Foundation. Past funders include Social Science Humanity, CMHC, Van City Credit Union, UBC Community University Engagement, West Coast Environmental Law, Ratcliffe and Company, Urban Development Institute. They have to make these disclosures. Their team. This is their team. Okay, Paul Kershaw, founder, lead executive, Andrew Loom. So these are the leaders of the organization. It's a charitable organization, so it has to have audited books as well. Here's the other people in there. So there you go. So get informed. Find out what's really going on. instead of taking people's words for it. Our story. Our story. Generation squeezes blazing trails to a Canada that works for all generations, where young and old alike can thrive. We champion generational fairness to preserve what Canadians hold sacred, a healthy childhood home and planet, so we can all leave a proud legacy. We are a charitable think and change tank. Okay? They're not there to show you how to rob you of your house. So, it's really, this is where it is. You can see it for yourself.
Generation. This is what they have to say. The title says, a price on housing inequity. Just like the governments have introduced a price on pollution to lower our emissions and tackle climate change, this report recommends putting a modest price on housing inequity to apply downward pressure on the skyrocketing housing prices that have landed Canada in an affordability crisis. We can start down this path by adding a small surtax starting at 0.2% and peaking at 1% on homes valued over $1 million. So don't worry. Do not worry, folks. The surtax would only apply to the top 10% most valuable homes and won't cost 90%.
So surtax of 0.2 to 1% over $1 million. Okay. And this is just a hypothetical here. This is something they're putting out there. They're not forcing you themselves on you, Josh.
Of Canadians a penny more. Well, we've heard this before, haven't we? It's going to benefit 8 out of 10 families in Canada, right? Right. The surtax would help to disrupt Canada's addiction to high and rising home values by signaling the earnings from hard work shouldn't be taxed more than wealth homeowners gain from rising home prices while they sleep and watch TV. The surtax would help disrupt the tax shelter that protects the trillions in added housing wealth homeowners have gained since 1977. Just like offshore tax shelters motivate moving money out of Canada to preserve assets, the home ownership tax shelter motivates us to bank on rising home prices to gain wealth. By turning home ownership into an investment strategy, this system is crushing affordability and harming younger and future generations. It's time to protect real shelters, not tax shelters. And this is the point I'm making. The progressive mindset is we need to figure out ways to tax your home equity. Our government policies have created the atmosphere for this to happen, but we're going to add even more tax. We're going to add even more policy to make sure that we then extract more out of the system. Instead of, I don't know, Poilievre's plan, reducing red tape, trying to increase building, trying to increase supply in order to naturally bring prices down, rather than trying to tax people who are
trying to use free markets to bring things down. Look what that's done for you. It doesn't work that way, buddy. Guess what? Those tax breaks, all those levies, you're going to say in the municipal level, oh, we're going to match it halfway, but the municipality's got to eat up the other half. And guess what? The municipality is going to friggin' charge the people. They've got no choice. Used to be their only revenue was taxing homeowners. That's it. That's been the natural source of revenue for every municipality in Canada from the day of Confederation or soon thereafter. So I'm going to go back to a guy by Mike Harris, Conservative Government, 1995. Cut. And he created the City of Toronto amalgamation. The City Amalgamation, the Great Amalgamation. And so downloaded costs to the municipalities, integrated all the municipalities into one city, City of Toronto. What did it do? Create a problem where you got all these levies and all these extra charges because it's the only way these municipalities can get by. So your free markets and your deregulation, it's a matter of having a different balance. Because the free markets and deregulation does not cut it. You look at the United States of America. They got a huge friggin' debt. And what do they want to do? This is why the Republicans always buy the vote. You get the tax cuts, you're buying a vote. It's just like carbon tax Carney. Yeah, carbon tax was such a vilified thing, even though in its construct, it was probably the best way you could do that kind of tax. but it got so vilified by Mr. Pierre Poilievre through slogans and platitudes that the section of the carbon tax that dealt with the general public was zero rated. And guess what? 2 months later, after that happened, are you rich now? Is that going to make you rich? No friggin' way. It was all smoke and mirrors, scare the crap out of you to get you to vote for a guy. And it was probably a thing that was necessary because we've been punting the climate change thing down the field for far too long, and it needs to be corrected. And you're not going to correct it by, look at bitumen, friggin' Alberta oil, friggin' the dirtiest friggin' oil around. And you know how much it costs to get out of the ground? When it was $20 a barrel, you weren't getting anything out of the oil sands. It doesn't matter how you did it, because you can't take anything out of the ground in Alberta in the oil sands for less than $57 US, minimum. So that's the reality.
Already have a house and disincentivize them to hold on to their homes. That is how they work. And what they're thinking with this plan is that, again, this is just a policy idea that they've been spitballing, right?
They've been spitballing this, and now it's your plan? Whose plan is this, Josh? Whose plan is it?
This is just a think tank who thinks that this is the way to go, that you put a surtax on these homes that accumulates year over year and compounds, and then you just pay out the tax when you sell the home, or, hear this, or you give it to someone in your family, i.e. an inheritance. That was the plan. That's what their thoughts were. This idea floated back in 2022-ish. It got a lot of people upset. It got people concerned. Well, what's going on? Especially the boomers. What's going on with my housing? You're going to try and tax the equity of my home? If that's going to be the goal here? Is that what you're going to try and do? So people got naturally upset. And a liberal MP, after liberal...
You never heard of inheritance taxes? Inheritance taxes? Yeah. Holy moly. Do you ever hear of anybody inheriting a house? It does happen on a regular basis. It's been going on for a long, long time. A long, long time. There's a song about that.
Liberal MP after liberal MP said, oh, they have nothing to do with our government. They don't inform policy that we're trying to do here. That was just something the CMHC indirectly funded, and we have nothing to do with it. And that was kind of how they talked it away. And then, you have Franco Terrazzano, who runs the Canadian Federation of Taxpayers, who acquired documentation that proved that the head of this think tank met with Trudeau to talk about this very idea. Documents show PMO staff held meetings on home equity taxes. Staff in Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's office met with a group that received funding to produce a report recommending a home equity tax, according to new documents obtained by the Taxpayers Federation. During the election, Trudeau told voters he wasn't going to impose a home equity tax. So why are his staff meeting about home equity taxes? Asked Franco Terrazzano, federal director of the CTF. If Trudeau wants Canadians to believe he's not coming after our homes, then his government should stop acting like it's considering a home equity tax. When Canadians sell the home they own and live in, their primary residence, they do not pay taxes on the proceeds. A group called Generation Squeeze received funding from the CMHC to study housing policy. The resulting report includes recommendations for a home equity tax. The Trudeau government insists is not studying a home equity tax and would not bring in the tax. Despite the denials, the CTF obtained emails noting that at least 2 meetings with the Prime Minister's office and the head of Generation Squeeze, Paul Kershaw. Kershaw said he planned to meet with the PMO staff on November 18th, 2021. Just keeping you in the loop, wrote Kershaw on November 16th, 2021. And CMHC's executive, Debbie Stewart. I will be briefing the PMO on Thursday, November 18th, about our Solutions Lab report, including giving them a briefing about the tax policy recommendation. We went back to PMO a few weeks later. I had a second meeting with the PMO today, wrote Kershaw to Stewart on December 10th. It makes me giggle to write this because the way our lab has been politicized would lead many to think the PMO is keenly aware of the lab and all of its activities, and that I have some magical direct access, if only. The CTF asked the PMO about...
If only? He said he has consternation and doubt in his voice. If only it was really like that.
The meetings, but did not respond by the time of publication. The CMHC spent $250,000 on the Generation Squeeze report, which included recommendations targeting the housing wealth windfalls gained by many homeowners while they sleep and watch TV. This is a concern. Again, the study's been kind of floating around 2020, 2021, 2022, and then it really got publicized in 2022. People got really fired up.
For a study in 2021. What year is it now? 2025. When's it going to fall? You think it's going to fall in 2030? When do you think? Who are you going to friggin' stress out about this?
And then it's kind of gone dormant. People not really talking about it. However, as I said, with this quote unquote new liberal government, they are actively trying to spend more money, meaning they're going to have to find more money elsewhere, and they're not doing anything to really spur the private sector. More public money is being filtered into it.
How do you know? It's only the 5th of May. It's May the 5th. The election is just over on April 28th. Like, come on, get real there, buddy. Like, what are you trying to do here?
Try and get things going. How is that going to help? This is why this conversation has come back to the surface of where are they going to be looking to get their money? We know that investment's not really going to be coming here anytime soon based on what their plans are. So naturally, one of the last things they can tap into is home equity that is currently untapped at $3.2 trillion here in the country. And if they add this home equity tax, they hypothesize that they could be getting about $5.8 billion per year through doing this. And that's why this has gained traction yet again. People are concerned.
Who's gained traction? All you're trying to do is whip up a false narrative to create fear in people. What is wrong with you, sir? You know, it's interesting. Andrew Scheer met with the CBC a couple of days ago. First time CBC in a long, long time. And this David Cochran, really good questions. And Andrew Scheer was on his heels. And then Andrew Scheer finally just said, well, we're going to hold the government accountable. So now you got Pierre Poilievre, lost his riding in Carleton, Ottawa, that he held for 20 years. A resounding loss for Pierre Poilievre, over 4,300 votes. And now he's going to Alberta, getting a safe seat, where Danielle Smith, Stephen Harper, and Preston Manning. So he's gone to Separationville, the little town of Separationville. So is really Pierre Poilievre looking to unify this country, work together? Where does he go? Alberta. He had the confrontation in Coutts, which is the border between Manitoba and or Alberta and Montana. You got some of the ringleaders of that. It was mostly financed, over 50% financed by Canadian or American Republican conservative financiers. And, you know, one of the ringleaders thinks they're fighting a war. They might die. They're going to fight to the death, because if they don't, the Chinese are going to invade, or Trudeau's going to steal the province from you. You know, this is what's going through these friggin' guys' heads. Like, you stir up this nonsense, and it lands in some people start hearing it, and they start getting this as thinking it's news. They think it's real. It's just bullshit with a capital B. Capital B? Yeah, capital B. Just friggin' bullshit, bullcrap. That's all it is. Put the meat on the table, just like that girl at Wendy's. Where's the beef? Where's the beef?
They would be looking to surface us only if Mark Carney actually got a serious mandate and looked to get a majority government. What people are worried about right now, we talked about last week, is Mark Carney took a very conservative approach in his presser. He really echoed all of Poilievre's policies, and saying that's what he wants to do. People are concerned about this because what he could likely do here, and the reason why it was confusing is because it flew in the face of everything he's ever written about, everything he's ever talked about, everything he's ever believed in, that we have documentation of, whether it be books, videos or press conferences or media appearances have shown that he is against everything that he even talked about in that press conference. So people are just like, where is this going? What is he actually trying to do? And people are concerned that he might be trying to continue to drum up and bolster that moderate base to get himself a majority government. So we could actually be looking at potentially he could have a decent summer, go into a solid fall, and he could be early next year. He might just call another election if things are going well so that he can get his majority to start pushing his agenda. And that's why this stuff is concerning. And that's why people are freaking out about a potential home equity tax, because we know that the ideas that they've proposed aren't working. They're continuing to push them. There's only so many other places that can look to get taxpayer funds. And this is one of them. Not saying it's going to happen. Just saying it's a concern that people have at this present time. And people have this concern because another tariff hits the Canadian economy relatively hard yet again. Trump to order 100% tariff on all movies produced abroad. U.S. President Donald Trump said Sunday he was ordering new...
Didn't you just finish saying a couple weeks ago that, why is this Carney saying... we have to change the way we're dealing with the United States, and you couldn't understand why, because we need to cut a new deal with the U.S. because this crisis stuff doesn't exist. Yikes. I've seen blueberry pancakes. I've seen eggs done over lightly, not flip as quickly as you're flipping here. With your perspectives, Josh.
Tariffs on all films made outside the United States, claiming Hollywood was being devastated by a trend of U.S. filmmakers and studios working abroad. The announcement comes as the White House is coming under mounting criticism over its aggressive trade policies that have seen Trump impose sweeping tariffs on countries around the globe. I am authorizing the Department of Commerce and the United States Trade Representative to immediately begin the process of instituting a 100% tariff on any and all movies coming into our country that are produced in foreign lands, he wrote on his Truth Social platform. This is actually a big deal to our economy here in Canada to a degree, specifically Vancouver, Toronto, and also Nova Scotia. As we've seen a lot of productions happen here recently, one of the biggest ones that's been filmed here consistently is the TV show From, which is one of the biggest TV shows.
I'll tell you another thing. Business in the United States is going to be hit real hard because of these tariffs real soon. You got a lot of anarchy starting to happen there, and it's just building up if you follow it, and it's going to hit hard because the cargo ships, cargo containers, the action stop. It's going to create a big problem. And Alberta wants to be the 51st state? Why don't you tell Danielle Smith to drop that 12% wine tax, start working with the provinces. She should know by now because LeBlanc, even the day after the election results were in, said there's no pipelines going through Quebec. But you understand, these pipelines take a minimum 10 years. So if you're going to do anything, you're going to do it from Alberta going west to BC. So that means you got to go through Saskatchewan and then British Columbia. Has Daniel Smith spent any time speaking to the Premier of Saskatchewan to say, let's build a pipeline through your... why can she not start those negotiations? Why can she not contact EB and said, this is my plan. What can we do to make this come to fruition? Then, of course, you got to get Indigenous leaders involved, too, because Alberta sits, the land of Alberta sits on treaty land, so the heads of the Cree Nation, and that's another thing you don't even think about. The Indigenous people understand the symbiotic relationship with man, nature, and the universe. And they never killed more than they needed to actually eat and survive on. They moved on the land from location to location to allow it to come back after it was used up and had been lived on. White man comes along, changes everything. Forked tongue. We're not even going to get into that topic here tonight. But I gotta tell you, I'm just had enough of this friggin' video here right now, because this is just friggin' absolute nonsense. Just nonsense, folks. This is as far as we go. And there it is. Boomers are shocked after the liberals betray them. It's all friggin' rumors. All these guys do is use X to get their news. Used to be Twitter. Algorithms have been manipulated by Elon Muscolini to a conservative slant. Media, like the Winnipeg Sun, any of them with the Sun, is owned by Chatham Asset Management. That's a right-wing American hedge fund that only hires people that support the Republican conservative narrative. The only way you can work there is to have a Republican conservative narrative. So this is the state of affairs. The state of affairs? Yes, the state of affairs. So, questions, comments, throw in chat. Question to everybody is, do you just want to keep going down the road of pain and suffering, negativity? Or do you want to take the route of compassion, benevolence, and creating an abundant life for everybody? And it's as simple as that. Pain and suffering, or compassion, benevolence, and creating an abundant life. And it's as simple as making that choice. So questions, comments, throw in chat. Sending love and peace to everybody. Take care. All the best. Ciao for now.